I'm super excited that Sierra Eberly is joining us to talk about creating a business on the road that she has called Boondock Consulting, and also some other tips and tidbits about van life. So, yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And I wanted to just start from the beginning
Thank
and
you.
see what got you into van life in the first place? Like, why did you start living in the van?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, isn't that the question of the hour for everybody? I had
Totally.
actually been considering van life for like over 10 years. I grew up in the middle of nowhere with no running water, no electricity, and so like camping and van life was just kind of like in my blood, you could say. And I had been working remote for another company for about 3.5 years prior to the pandemic. So I already had that ability to kind of be mobile. And for whatever reason, I was too scared. And then the pandemic hit. And yes, I'm a pandemic baby when it comes to van lights. I realized that everything that I loved about where I lived was taken away. I worked remote, I had the stable job. I figured what the heck? What's the worst that'll happen? I'll buy a van and I'll start out and I'll hate it and I'll sell it and go back and have my apartment. So I was very lucky to have like kind of that stability to do it. Um, so that was my trigger on starting van life because I've been thinking about it forever. I love to trail run with my dog. I wanted to explore the country. I've owned homes before. I didn't know where I wanted to buy land again. I was just like, okay, well, let's just go explore everywhere and figure it out.
Totally. That's amazing. And so you were already kind of primed to live van life. So did you purchase a van that was already built out, or did you go through that whole conversion process?
I built the van that was already built out because I had the ability to do so. I wanted to build my own. I actually owned a construction company at one point too, so I'm familiar with building things, but I had nowhere to build it, and I didn't really have the time because I was working my full time job. But I had the finances, so I ended up buying one. I would like to build my own out someday when I have time again.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good reason because we're building ours out in the middle of nowhere and it has its challenges. And so I think it is
It's
easier, sometimes
hard,
a good
yeah.
idea, just buy one that's done. So that's
Yep,
fantastic. And so
definitely.
you
It has
had,
its perks, and now I'm actually really glad that I did it this way because I've been in the van now for over 2 years, and I have such a good idea of what I like about the build and what I don't and what I would change. So, like, in my next build, I would definitely do some things very differently. So it's been good to just kinda have something done and just try it out for a while and then really put the effort into what I really want.
yeah, and it's really cool. You already had a remote job. What was it like to transition that job from where you were living into a van?
Yeah, it was really stressful on my end because I worked for a consulting firm. I was in human resources and recruiting. And the company had more of like an old school mentality and they didn't like the idea of me being remote. So really it was only my boss and a few other employees that even knew that I was gonna be traveling in my van. So I pretty much had to just pretend that I was still in my apartment most of the time, and I was always stressed out that I wouldn't have internet connection or something would go wrong or whatever, and they'd find out and get mad at me. And it never did. It always worked out pretty well, but it was definitely stressful just trying to figure out where to find self service and figuring out the whole connectivity and Wi-Fi and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So what did you do in the beginning for all those things? Did you get a hotspot, or what did you do about internet at first?
Yeah, I've tried multiple different things, but the thing that worked the best for me was getting multiple SIM cards for a hotspot because this was before Starlink was a thing. Um, and I had, I think, four different SIM cards for a hotspot because after even they say it's unlimited speed, as we all know, there's really no such thing as unlimited high speed when it comes to cell phones. So I had to rotate my cards because I had a ton of video calls and I had to have the high speed. It wasn't just like I needed connectivity for email and web browsing or whatever. And then I had a hotspot on my phone and on my iPad. So I had like two backups and then my main cards, 4 gigs of, or four different cards that I think they each had 30 gig at the time. So I was going through 120 gig a month at minimum of high speed internet for my job. And I always had a backup plan for finding somewhere that had cell service. And if that place wasn't good enough, then I had a backup plan to go, if I had to backtrack a half hour or go somewhere else or whatever to make sure that I had somewhere to just park for the day so I could work.
Yeah, so you had like was this like a 9 to 5 job where you had to be available for 8 hours a day?
Yeah. Yes. Very much
Wow.
so. More so available like 10 hours or more a day. Like it was 8 to 5, but I managed a team throughout the US. So I had people on the East Coast and the West Coast that reported to me. My boss was on the West Coast, so we had the same hours. But sometimes I even had to coordinate calls abroad, like with Paris, because our company was based out of there. But it was very much like they knew I was working Pacific time hours and I had to be available and online and responsive within reason between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. usually. Yeah, it was a lot.
And what was that yeah, I'm wondering what that was like, when you have to how much driving van life is, both of us know that, trying to find a campsite, like, how did
Yeah.
you do that? Like, what was that like?
It was really stressful. I typically would just find somewhere that had really good cell service and I'd park for the week, park Monday through Friday. Or sometimes if I had calls that were spread out more during the weekday, I would go into town and make like Tuesday my town day. And then I'd have my call from 10 to 11 and then I'd do laundry and then have a call from, noon to 1 and then go do my grocery shopping and shower and then have my call from 3 to 5 and then drive out somewhere. But I typically just did my errands on weekends when I had the day off, and then I would just go and park and sit for a week. Because with the water that I have in my van, I was able to keep that and not have to leave for that amount of time.
Wow. So, yeah, so that's how long did you keep that up?
A year and a half. Yeah, the first year and a half, I was pretty much doing the corporate grind while I was in my van.
Wow, wow. And then so now you do something completely different. I'm just wondering, how did you make that switch from having that corporate job to trying to go off on your own?
Yeah, I've been in HR and recruiting for a very long time, and the firm that I had worked with originally had been acquired by this larger firm. So I had purposely kind of taken a step backwards in my career about 5 years prior to work with a smaller firm and to have like more of a close knit team and to have a little more autonomy with the work that I did. And then, as happens, especially in Seattle, which is where I was at the time, the firm got acquired by the large global firm, and a lot of things changed and it just wasn't really aligning with what I liked. I loved the team that I worked with. My boss was amazing. My team that I worked with were great, but I was really resonating with the type of work that I was doing. So I was quite honestly miserable with my corporate job, but it paid the bills. So I took up a hobby, which I thought it was going to be. I wanted to start my own business and I thought, okay, well, I want to support businesses that support nomadic living and off grid lifestyles and sustainable living and things like that. I want to be really purposeful with what I support. I love to write. So I had no portfolio. I had a like personal blog that's about 6 years behind at this point. But I thought, hey, I'm just going to put myself out there. And I've done project management and admin work. I've done all sorts of things. So like maybe I can just support and do like some weird admin work, one-off stuff, like project based for small businesses, make these little packages that they can afford. And maybe if I get 10 of those people with the small enough packages, then I could make enough money as if it was one big job, right? So I made an Instagram account and a website, and I started just kind of writing some stuff to keep me happy, more like hobby. And people started reaching out to me. Apparently, it's really hard to find a good copywriter, and I didn't know this. Um, and exactly what I wanted is what was resonating with these businesses. They loved that I'm nomadic. They love that I lived in the van. They love my background. They love that I can more or less speak their language and speak to their clients. But because of my corporate background, I also had that business sense. So I can also speak to the business themselves and kind of be that in between person. And it worked really well. So I started doing some work and was just offering up, hey, I'll do this project for you. And if you don't like the first one, you don't have to pay me. If you do like it, here's my rate. And so far, I've never had anyone say no to me. And people just keep reaching out and wanting support. It's been really incredible. I was doing that for about 3 months. And I couldn't do both. I had more and more clients reaching out and I had a little bit of money saved. So I decided to take the leap, and my boss knew I wasn't happy and she knew that I was probably going to be leaving at some point anyway, but I gave them a good notice, I think about a month's notice. And transitioned out of the role and decided I would focus on my own business with hopes that it would work. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I knew I had the skills to where the worst that would happen is I'd go find another job that I hated, but it would pay the bills, right? So the worst that would happen is I'd go through some savings and then I'd go right back to what I was doing before and, nothing lost but a little bit of money. But that hasn't happened. So it's been amazing.
That's so cool. That's such a great story. I think a lot of people want to go from corporate to starting their own business, but they're scared or they don't know where to start. Like, how did
Yes.
you, like, what kind of fears did you have when you first started to go off on your own?
Oh, all of them for sure. Again, I feel like I was very lucky to where I did have a little bit of money saved to where I knew like even if I had zero work for 6 months, like I wasn't going to die. I wasn't going to starve. I might not be driving as much, but like I'd be able to feed my dog and myself. Um, I knew that with my skill set that I could go and get another job and it might not have been as high paying as the one that I had, but that I knew I could go be a recruiter somewhere or do HR, project management or something. But yeah, I was terrified of failing. I was terrified of trying something and just having it not work or writing something for a client and having them hate it. That's just normal to have those fears, I think. But for me, the alternative was worse of not trying and then wondering a year down the road as completely unhappy and hair's falling out from stress and having anxiety attacks or whatever from not enjoying my other job that what it was worth a little bit of fear to try something new than to just sit in something that I wasn't happy with. Life's too short.
Yeah, yeah, 100% life's too short. So, yeah, so I'm wondering, so you didn't have to go out and do like massive amounts of outreach, right? People just started learning about you were doing this through word of mouth, or how have people found you mostly?
Yeah, it's crazy. My first 3 clients, were all through Instagram. Instagram's where it's at, hashtag van life. I made my Instagram account, and I followed some businesses that I was interested in. And I, messaged a few people and just asked what they were interested in and if they needed support with anything and had a few offerings. And people reached out. Within the first month, I had 3 different clients reach out to me directly and say, "Hey, what can you do? How can you support me?" So I did that. And then I was very purposeful with an email list. And I went out and, like, was going to different websites and gathering emails of businesses that I wanted to support, that I really believed in and I thought would be really great. And every time I send out anything email wise, I end up with somebody replying to me saying that they, saw my website, they're excited, they need help with writing, whatever. It's been really incredible. And I mean, it's a tiny little list, like maybe 60 to 100. And most people have like thousands and thousands of emails, right? And I've been very purposeful with that. So I think that's helped tremendously is being that niche and being really focused on what, um, what I wanted to support.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you created kind of a custom list. And is that something like if someone was going to break out on their own, is that how you'd recommend doing outreach? Is just finding those companies that you really or people that you really wanted to work with and then creating a list and reaching out to them individually?
Yeah. I do. I think that having custom packages, I think that's what people want now. There's so much business out there that's so impersonal. And I feel like taking that extra time and really learning about someone's business and making things more targeted, absolutely is helpful. And I think that comes from my recruiter background. Like, I never just did blanket emails to candidates that I was interested in just because they had something on them. I'd actually look at their resume and their background and I would write something personable and relatable. And it's the same thing with business. And I think that niche is very important as well. A lot of people are afraid and they want to do this huge blanket thing and offer everything to everyone, or they don't know where. And when you can really hone in and focus on something that you know you're good at and that you are going to be passionate about and that you really enjoy, I think you're just going to be more successful by default by doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm thinking about someone that works at a corporate job and they really want to go off on their own. What would be some starting tips for them, like in identifying um, what route to take with starting their own business? Like, what to even do? Like, if you had any advice.
Yeah. Um, Man, I am a rabbit hole girl. I do my research. And I would first choose that thing that you really love. Think about, especially if you're starting off something, you're going to be doing it a heck of a lot more than 40 hours a week. Like it's not just a, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 job. When you're starting your own thing, it's hours of research and late nights and waking up at 2 a.m. with an idea and jotting things down because you don't want to forget about it. And it's all on you. It's not like you have a boss to bounce things off of or, coworkers to talk about ideas with. And um, I think it's really important to just take the time to do that research. And if it's something that you enjoy, it's going to make it a lot easier. And then reach out to your community. I've learned so much from other fellow entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, nomadic people that have owned their own businesses or that do freelance work and just asking them questions. A lot of what I do now, honestly, I knew nothing about before. And I've learned from other people who've been doing it for, 10 years, but they don't have bandwidth for more. So they're like, hey, I'll take an hour and teach you how to do this. And if you have questions, you can ask me and we'll flip each other some work or what have you. I think that's huge as well. Is just leveraging resources that you have and realizing what those resources are. I think a lot of people don't realize how many resources there are out there that you can use. They think it's all on them.
They don't think they quite have the skills or they want to be a VA. Like, what would you suggest that they do if they're feeling that way?
Do it anyway. Um, so yeah, do it anyway, honestly. I did not have a portfolio. I had no, oh God, sorry. My dog just,
Ah, it's all right, van
life with
life.
dogs. he just grabbed my cord on my laptop. Okay. Um, yeah, I, I personally didn't have a portfolio. I literally had my personal blog. I offered up work for free because I wanted the experience. I gave people really good deals in the beginning because I just wanted the experience under me. I also did a ton of research with people who did the work that I wanted to do and looked at their style. And like for me, it was I looked at other blogs that were really interesting and learned about their writing styles. I did a ton of research on how to learn how to write blogs and what the heck is an H2 heading and what is SEO. And um, I just did a lot of research. And again, I feel like it's coming back to my recruiting career, right? Because I had to recruit for things that I knew nothing about. And there were many times in my career where I'd be interviewing like a candidate that was for an accounting role. And I still count on my fingers. Like I'm not a math person, not an accountant. And I'd have a candidate say, oh my gosh, how long were you an accountant before you were a recruiter? And I would just laugh and go, I've never been an accountant. They go, well, you really know what you're talking about. And the reality is I had no idea what I was talking about, but I knew what to say and I knew how to do my research. I knew what questions to ask and I knew what the answers would be. Um, so it was just learning the language and learning what people needed. And then just taking a chance and trying it. And the worst that'll happen is it won't work. Um, yeah, I guess that's it too. Just accepting the fact that if you fail, you fail, but at least you tried. It's not really failure if you tried in my mind.
Yeah, totally. And I like your idea about getting practical experience. I think a lot of people think, oh, I got to go take this $2,000 copywriting class. But for you, you just jumped in and you are getting experience as you go, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been very hands on and self taught. I was also homeschooled. So that says a little bit about that too. It's a very different mindset than a lot of people who went to a more traditional school. So yeah, I mean, the information is out there. I mean, we have these little computers in our pockets that tell us everything we can possibly ever need. It's just a matter of having the attention span to do it and then knowing what to look for and retaining it, I guess. And yeah, it's just lots of research time. And you don't have to pay all the money for all the classes and all the certifications, depending on what you need. I mean, some jobs, they do require certain certifications. Like obviously, if you're going to go be an electrician, you should probably be a certified electrician, right? But for a writer, it was more just like, well, here's my writing style. Do you like it? Here's some things I learned and I can help you with it and go from there. Kind of prove yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about is you have, I know some people go with like a per project, fee or a per word fee, but you operate more in a retainer fee. Tell me a little bit about the benefits
Mhm.
of doing that versus like a per project structure.
Yeah. Well, again, because I was targeting small businesses, I knew that most likely these small businesses wouldn't have a budget, period. And the budget they did have, if any, would be very small. And it's just me. So it's not like I have a budget for just to be able to survive. Right. So, um, I decided to figure out how much money I needed to be able to pay my bills and still have a little extra money to, buy some ice cream every once in a while if I wanted to. And then be able to figure out how much I needed per month. And then I'm able to prioritize my time based off of a client that pays me on a retainer. So if I have a client that pays me $125 a month or $500 a month or $1,000 a month, then I prioritize them and they pay me ahead of time. So I know my bills are paid. I do all that work. And then if there's other clients that are just like, well, I don't really want to commit to a month, but do you have time for this project? Then when I do have that extra time, I'm able to come back and say, yeah, I can do that blog or I can redo that website for you right now because it's a little slower right now. And I finished up on my other work. So it works out well for both ends because then the clients are also able to budget more and understand what they're getting. And I'm also able to give them a little bit of a better deal than if it's a per project base because I know that money's coming and I know the work that I have to do. So it's more planning on my end too.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea because I think a lot of van lifers are wondering, like, oh, how am I going to make that next $100 or something? And they get freaked out. But
Yeah.
if you have retainers with a variety of people, you have that money coming in and
Yeah.
then you can budget.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I'm able to scale and shift a little bit as needed. And the retainers I have now, like I've been very lucky that I had one specific client that I started out with early on, and they were my largest retainer. And it was literally like that wasn't enough to pay my bills, but it was enough to make me feel like I wasn't going to starve to death if I had nothing else except their money coming in each month. It was like it would pay for a most important bill, and I still had savings, so it was okay. So it gave me a little bit of wiggle room to put myself out there and spend more time marketing myself and, maybe putting together some other things that I could repurpose to other clients and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like a lot of the pieces are working out and fitting together well. and so,
It's a
and,
lot
that-
of
and you're
pieces.
very,
It's a ton of pieces.
yeah. Is it hard to manage all the pieces? I know that when I went on my own, I had a hard time figuring out like when I would work, when I would have fun, when I should take time off. Have you had issues with scheduling your life around your own business?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said you had a problem with that or a challenge with that. Because, yes, that's honestly been my biggest challenge on working for myself and starting my business. Excuse me. It's not even been finding the work or it's been hard like to figure out what do you even charge people. Like you go and do research and it's like people will do anywhere from I'll build your website for $10 to I'll build your website for $10,000, right? And trying to find that middle ground of okay, what's realistic for me. Um the biggest challenge has been prioritizing my time because I've been just focus mode of Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And now the work that I'm doing is very different and it takes a lot more brain power. I'm not just on Zoom calls with people on these silly meetings all day long. And I have to shift and work later now. And then it's so easy to just like tunnel in and do a whole bunch of work. Yeah, I've really struggled with learning how to prioritize my exercise and time with my dog. And when I get into that tunnel vision of doing research for myself, there's times that I'll start at 8 in the morning and then all of a sudden I look up and it's dark outside. And I'm like, where'd the day go? Because it's fun and I'm enjoying it. But it's sometimes I literally have to like set a timer or an alarm or put something on my calendar to remind me to go out and take a walk and do some stretching or go for my run or whatever. And it's literally taken almost this entire year for me to get in a groove and finally figure out like, I don't do well in the mornings. I never have my entire life, but in corporate life, you have to. So now it's been accepting that, okay, well, it's fine if I'm in a mood and I'm up working until 2 a.m. because I can sleep in later. And just allowing yourself to do that and listening to your body and um, knowing when to pause and when it's okay to just dive in and do a full day of work. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. It definitely takes a lot more setting of boundaries than having a normal
Yeah.
job where, you have the weekend off and a certain time of day in the evening. I know that I love to work and I get really into it. And then my partner, Tom, is like, hey, it's like time for happy hour. It's time for a walk. So I do have that
Yeah.
influence saying that, hey, let's go do something. So
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah, all I
a
have is
good
my dog that'll
thing.
bark at me if it gets too late. So, which is great, but sometimes it's like, "No, I'm on call, be quiet." Like,
Totally. Yeah. And so how does it compare to you? Because you started out having a remote job and you're living the van life and working the stressful job to
Mhm.
having your own business, which has its own stresses. But how has it been now? Like, do you prefer this? And how is it different from
Oh,
your
yes.
last position?
Yes, I love this. I am so lucky. And I feel like I pinch myself every day because I still can't believe I'm literally living my dream. I'm happy. I'm supporting myself. I have this incredible, beautiful little home on wheels that I can take wherever I want and park in the middle of nowhere and do my work and support businesses that I love. Like there isn't one client that I have that I don't resonate with. And I just absolutely am proud to be able to help their business grow. Um, I love having the flexibility and having a friend be like, "Hey, do you want to go for a hike at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday?" And me say yes because I can, and not have to worry about somebody getting upset at me. Um, Obviously, if I have calls with my clients, I keep those, but I try to
Sure.
plan those out accordingly throughout the week. So I love it, and I hope to grow my business to where I can support other people and other nomadic entrepreneurs and freelancers and stuff as well more.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it seems like having one's own business it fits better with van life than working a corporate
Yes,
job. That's what it seems.
it does. It does. I'll
Yeah.
answer that for sure after I do taxes for the first time this year. So that'll be interesting. I'm only getting a little
Oh
nervous
yeah,
about
that
that.
is.
I've owned my own businesses before, but it's never been like 100% my own business. It's always been like I've had a job and my own business or what have you. So it'll be interesting this year doing doing taxes.
Yeah, that's a good thing to mention as well. When you start your own business, you need, a separate bank account. You need to track your
Yes.
expenses and your income, like with QuickBooks, like what I do. And then you're walloped with the self-employment tax. So it's just all the,
Yep.
budgeting and be aware of for people listening to us today.
No
So
kidding. And that's something I feel really lucky to have known about too, is because I did have my own businesses before. I learned like the basic stuff. Like I knew that needed to make it separate and I need the business account and the business banking account and make sure everything is all lined up that way. So, but yeah, it's a lot and it's very overwhelming.
totally. Were you surprised that you got so many clients within your first year of business, especially in the
Yeah.
nomadic space?
I was shocked. I had no idea. Mainly because I didn't know that apparently it's hard to find a good copywriter or content writer. I've spoke to so many companies that said, "Oh yeah, like all the freelance copywriters or content writers that I work with, they don't respond to me. They'll tell me they're going to have something done and they don't get it done on time. They don't communicate well. They don't respond to my email, like all these things." And I was just shocked. I'm like, "Well, that's no way to run a business. Why would somebody be not responding?" So yeah, and I've had some referrals, which has been absolutely amazing. It's my favorite to, have someone refer you out, like the best compliment you can get. So it's been really good.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and it's important to have somebody that understands nomadic living, like you were saying in the beginning. Like so many people, I've hired ghostwriters before, which I don't do anymore, but they would write these posts for my site that didn't really reflect um
Yeah.
the lifestyle. And I'm like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's funny. I actually
yeah,
just had someone reach out to me and wanted to do just like one blog a month on their site. And it was for something nomadic as well. And they're like, "Yeah, we have someone else doing it, but they're not nomadic. And I'm just not really happy with what they've written." And it was something as simple as I read through their blog and they referenced like how there's all these places to park for free and you can park at every Walmart and every Cracker Barrel. And like they were listing off these things. And I'm that's also not true. Like you can't, that's not true these days. There's plenty of Walmarts and Cracker Barrels that you can't park at. So to say that all of them can, like I'd hate to send someone out on their first thing and then show up somewhere and then get kicked out right away. Right. So little things like that. It's really nice to have a little bit of that knowledge to be able to help the companies write the way that they want.
yeah, for sure. And so now, after you've been doing this for a while, you've been on the road for a couple years. What internet do you now recommend for other nomads?
Well, if you need consistent high speed internet, Starlink is absolutely worth the money. Um, Starlink's been amazing. I've been able to be where there's zero cell service and sit there for 10 days, 14 days and be able to do all my phone calls, Zoom calls, Google calls, upload, download everything. It's been amazing. Um, if you don't need that, honestly, a hotspot's going to be just fine. if you can find self-service most places, if you're comfortable being off grid for a day or two, as long as you download offline maps and stuff like that, it's fine. But if you can afford it and you need that, Starlink is where it's at. It's totally worth it.
Yep, I totally another vote for Starlink over here. I use a hotspot as well, but the link is just consistent and fast, and it works off
Yeah.
grid. You can go out in the middle of nowhere, which is phenomenal. I mean, what a dream, as you said.
No kidding. It's
So,
incredible. It
yeah.
obviously, as you know, it doesn't work if you're like blocked on the northern sky. So like in the Pacific Northwest, it's difficult where there's trees, like where my parents live. My dad's in the middle of nowhere and his cabin is just like trees all around. There's no cell service. And I was like, well, I'll try. Maybe Starlink will work. And yeah, it didn't. It was like it would work, but it was like losing service every couple of minutes. And it was like not, it was losing it so often, it was just not even worth it. So but the majority of the time it's right there. It's amazing.
Oh, such an amazing thing for us nomads. So,
Hmm.
yeah, what you were saying
Game
before
changer.
your hope for your business. I know. So, yeah, so you're hoping to expand and hire other nomads. What's your vision for your business moving forward?
Yeah, my vision is to continue to support businesses that encourage the nomadic and tiny living and off-grid sustainable lifestyles. I have found that because of my background, I am really good at I hate using the word manage, but I don't know what other word I write and I can't think of the right word. I'm really good at managing people and wrangling people and just organizing. Um, and I've found that I've met a lot of nomads that are freelancers that are really great at doing the work, but they don't know how to market themselves or they're not comfortable with it or they're not really great with just the business side. Like they're great at producing amazing content and work, but maybe they're not great with those conversations or organizing themselves. So my hope, and I already have some people that I'm working with this way, is that I can continue to, if I can't do the work myself, then I flip it to another freelancer who is also either nomadic or, sustainable, tiny living, whatever, somehow related to this lifestyle. And they can do the work and it goes through me. And my clients don't know the difference. I'm still doing that final approval stamp on there. I'm still, the main point of contact, the one giving all the direction, but I'm able to give them more work so they can make money. My clients are happy. They don't know any different. And I'm able to help the community by giving them more work as well. So that's my ultimate goal. And it's already starting, which is incredible. It's just to grow my little nomad network with some more people to help me out when I can't meet all the needs that are there.
Cool. That's just so exciting and inspiring for people to hear that want to start their own businesses, that it is possible. Because you're doing it and
Yes,
it's only been a year and you're successful already. So that's really inspiring and
absolutely.
great for people to hear.
It is. Yeah, every time I
Yeah,
meet someone that's talking about it, I'm always encouraging them, like, do it, just try it. You don't got nothing to lose.
totally. Yeah. Well, do you have any other advice to give people that we didn't touch on yet?
Gosh, no, just don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that that's huge, and that's where so many people I think pause is they don't want to act dumb or they don't maybe just ask questions on what should they be asking. Sometimes they don't even know what to ask. I think that's huge is just to consistently try to learn and leverage your peers, ask other people that have their businesses and stuff. And yeah, just talk to people, see what people need, figure out how you can adapt to it.
Very cool. And also, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So my business website is Boondock Consulting, and it's also Boondock Consulting on my Instagram. And then my personal Instagram is Sierra's Traverse. It's pretty much just pictures of my dog and I running through the wilderness. So if you like white dogs and mountains, that's what that one is. But you can reach me through any of those mediums.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. I think a lot of people are wondering. So, yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and I hope this inspires some people to get out there and do what they love.
Me too.